Welcome back to another episode of Hobby Time in the Murder Basement, where today I get to sit down and talk with Kit from Game Envy. Felt great being able to talk to somebody who has directly helped my hobby in so many different ways. Stick around, we have a great chat. All right, joining me today in the Murder Basement, I have Kit from Game Envy, the creator of the Hobby Holders. I am sure that most of you, if you're smart, you have either backed a Kickstarter or picked some up at a convention or went in on some orders with friends. They make great products. Kit, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
Excellent, excellent. So, how did you find your start into the hobby? Like, where was the birth of starting with plain little tiny soldiers or knights or whatever to producing like really practical, useful tools that like are the things that we kind of forget about when starting like our hobby careers of like, oh, like these things are actually like really beneficial. So how did you get into this very fun little hobby that we're all in?
So I started through Dungeons and Dragons, actually.
Okay.
And so I was invited to play by a friend here where I live. I'd always wanted to play. But you know, it's hard to get in your 30s to get a Dungeons and Dragons group together if you don't know anyone.
Okay, so you were like me, and you didn't get Dungeons and Dragons when you were young. You're doing it when like everybody has kids, and it's hard to get together.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm glad I'm not alone.
Oh, I think there's a lot of us. Oh, yeah. So I ended up painting. Then I wasn't painting my character. I was painting. My DM had brought characters for everyone, and we were playing with them. But then I was like, well, this looks like fun. So I went into made a character just for fun and painted it up, and it was actually the very first mini I painted. If you go back to the very first Kickstarter I did, it's in the cover photo of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's like a Reaper some wizard or something like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that like those Reaper models are like some of the best ways to get people into the hobby because they're cheap. You like they look good, even if they have like kind of weird sculpts. You're like, I spent $2 on this. Who cares?
Yeah. Well, they have anything you can think of to
Right.
to paint.
the line is so diverse, and like I bought like the Reaper starter kit, and like so I painted a troll, a skeleton boy.
Skeleton.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is easy. I can do skeletons all day. And then like a little like dwarven knight thing, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'm totally hooked. So how long were you like painting minis before you started realizing that you needed tools that nobody had made yet?
I mean, it was sort of happened as I progressively, but it was probably 2 years before I came up with the idea to further, which became the Hobby Holder. And the origin of that is I was just using bottle caps to hold my miniatures. So I started with bottle caps, and then I had all these Reaper minis that were half painted on bottle caps, and like I wanted a little bit, some of them are metal, some of them are plastic, so I wanted something more. And it actually ended up I'd seen people painting with corks and champagne corks and stuff like that, and so I cut the top off a soda bottle and glued it onto the top of a champagne cork, and I used that for a little while. And then I was like, as I was getting more into the hobby and like reading about casting and stuff like that, I went to like Michael's, I think, at the time, and got some amazing silicone mold, and I made a mold of that, and then I made little like resin ones that were
Oh,
the
cool.
and so I still have the first one I did, but actually I think I still have the wine cork with the bottle cap or a bottle top somewhere.
Nice.
And so I was using that for a while, these little resin bottle cap switchers. And when I was doing that, I didn't have any sort of 3D printing capabilities at that time. And then my brother ended up getting the 3D printer, and I was like, "Hey, can I borrow your 3D printer?"
Well, and I think weren't you putting like your files up on Thingiverse pretty early on into all of this, like way early in the development, like trying to figure out the best way to make the things screw together?
I haven't put any on Thingiverse. I know there have been ones on there,
Okay.
but I did. I think I went through. I mean, I tested it forever. I took it to my local game shop, and it's actually really funny. A lot of the sort of features that it had, not a lot of them, but some of the features that the Hobby Elder has came from just not knowing about injection molding.
Oh, sure.
So actually, I mean, so I'm a graphic designer. That's my background. And
Okay.
I was a creative director at a college near where I live. And I've just always sort of played around with this stuff. But then I taught myself 3D modeling after I went on Fiverr and had someone make something for me, and I was like, I don't like this. So I was like, I'll just teach myself.
Right, right. Yeah. And you're using like Tinkercad, like,
Yeah.
I think there's an easier way.
Yeah. So it ended up like I went through like rounds and rounds, and I'm working on this XYZ printing 3D printer that, was good at the time. But it was 2017, which doesn't sound like that long ago, but that was still like 3D printers were still getting started then.
And they were very expensive and they weren't very good. Like
Yeah.
I had a MakerBot that was from 2016 given to me, and it was gonna cost more money to fix it than it was to just buy a new 3D printer that works better. I was like, oh, I'm just giving this away, and nobody wanted it. They're like, nah, no thanks, man.
Yeah, I was the XYZ one that I was using took proprietary cartridges. They were spools, just regular old spools of filament that they had a little chip in them. So I got tired of. I ended up giving it away. It was actually halfway through the Kickstarter campaign. I ended up upgrading because people were like, "It's just going to look better." I'm like, "It's going to be injection molded."
I promise you, it's fine. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that because the comments are always so cruel in Kickstarters because you're just like, just be a little nicer about it, guys. Like we get it, you're interested, and now you're invested in this, so you feel like but like tone the attitude down just a tad.
and also, I mean, the first campaign I think had 2,600 backers, and my second one had 3,600.
Wow.
But even that, I feel like overall really positive, and I found the biggest thing is just communication, and that's all people are looking for. And if you communicate and also are yourself, like there's something where when you lock in, when you run your first Kickstarter, you are never allowed to change your name. So I made a decision to stick with my name because they're products that I make, and I wanted it to be a being the face of it sounds a little vain, but I didn't want it to be a wall of game envy.
Sure.
I wanted it to be me. So and I think that people had a name to talk to rather than getting into conversations and stuff. I feel like seems like it's easier for people to open up to a person or to realize that there's it is just me, and at that time it was me in my basement and with another 40-hour job.
So what's that like running a Kickstarter and working full time on top of it? That to me sounds like I'm self-employed.
Mm-hmm.
I know like when it gets crunch time, sometimes you just don't have a whole lot of time for anything else. And a Kickstarter is like a full-time commitment because
Mm-hmm.
like you said, if you don't have that communication, people just start to turn, and it starts getting toxic, and so yeah, like it's gotta be hard.
Yeah, and so I think I was only working. I mean, I'm working full time now, but at Game Envy. But I was working as a creative director for the first campaign, and about 8 months running my store too while I was doing that. So, I mean, honestly, I didn't know what was going to happen either. I put up my goal. Is my cat bothering you? I hear meowing from my end. No? Okay.
No, it's all good. Eventually, what will happen is my door will open because my wife will get tired of my cat yelling, and all of a sudden there'll be a giant Maine Coon cat like behind me, wanting on my lap. So it will happen on my side as well.
Okay. Now, what was I saying?
Yeah. Working campaign.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah.
So it was it and even going into my most recent Kickstarter that just ended, I don't think, unless you like know what you're doing, like, and not know what you're doing, but unless you really know you have a huge audience, you're never 100% sure if you're going to fund. And maybe,
of course,
at least at my level where I'm the only person in the office. But so it was, me with my hobby holder and showing it to my wife and and my family, and they're like, all right, and the people at work, they're like, okay, you think you're going to get $16,000 for that?
Right? Yeah. Well, I don't think anybody understands, like, unless if you're like crafty, there really isn't a better option. Now there's like some things that have kind of like followed suit. I shouldn't say copied. That's a dickhead thing to say, and I don't want to be that way. But like, followed suit in some of your design choices. There are some people who've done some really like incredible hardwood, like super high end looking things that which like I'm not gonna lie, like it might be fun to have on a shelf, but like, yours is so practical and useful, and you look at it and it instantly makes sense on how you're supposed to use it. Like the second I saw the hobby holder, I was like, oh yeah. I was like, I just spent all this money on paint. Like next month, I'll do this next thing. Yeah, just next month it'll be fine.
But I mean, and like you said, it's, and actually at the time when I started development, I didn't even know, because I wasn't like part of the hobby, so I didn't know about some of the other things out there. But I think the wood one was the only one that was really out there at the time. And then it was a week before the end of my first campaign that Citadel announced theirs. So there was like, so it was like, and it was, they usually do big puff-ups and reveals, and it was like they dropped it in an email or something and said, hey, guess what we're putting out? And I was like, did I just show up on someone's map?
Probably. Yeah. That was just enough. They're like, uh-oh. Like, we don't have branding done, get it out now.
Yeah. So it was the people at my local game shop and the people that I know that paint, they understood. They were like, yeah, you'll definitely at least fund. Sure. And then I had some color stretch goals planned out and stuff like that. So I think for the first campaign, it was every night we were doing a new stretch goal for the most part. And so I'd write, I'd be up till 2 or 3 writing posts and stuff, and then going to bed, getting up, going to work, and then and doing that whole thing. And then through production, I had some friends help out with shipping them because it was just, we were in my basement at that time. And then the store, after the campaign was over, which was huge, just running the store, same thing. I go to work, I come home, we have dinner. We only had 1 kid at the time. And then, so it was a little easier. Now we're up to 3 now.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty soon they'll be really good at like helping you pack stuff. Yeah. And like, I worked with my dad when I was a kid. I think that's pretty important for growth and development. So
absolutely.
Like, I say good, go for it.
Yeah. He can count 10 caps really easily. I've put him to work packing bags of caps.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, but so there's that. It was and because I'm really dedicated to my family and not taking that time away from them, it was, at 9 or 10 when my wife and my kids were asleep is when I would come downstairs and start doing all that stuff. And
oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's intense.
Yeah, and it was August that next year when I put in my notice, and then a week after I left my job, it was Nova Open. So that was like, I had a week to get really prepared. Went to Nova for my first convention I've ever gone to for this kind of stuff.
Ah.
And it was like a week or two after that, I was talking to my wife, and I was like, I like had time to do things. I was like, I don't know how I was doing this. And she was like, well, you were kind of miserable. I was like, yeah, it's not.
I was like, I've totally been there, and there's just some times when you're so deep in it that you can't see the forest from the trees. You're just like, I just got to do this, and I gotta go, and you don't realize like that your quality of life has gone way down. I think I got my first hobby holder from your first Gen Con, because Nova, Gen Con in order, right? Nova's first.
I wasn't at Gen Con. I was at PAX.
Or Origins.
I've been to PAX. No, I haven't been to
PAX?
Origins.
Okay, it might have been PAX. Like, I had a friend who saw it, took a photo, and I know that they weren't at Nova. And they're like, "Is this what you were talking about?" I was like, "Yeah, give me the copper one." So,
maybe Las Vegas Open. Is that something they would have gone to?
No. It was definitely like it was one of the summer things. So maybe it was PAX. Yeah, and I was just like so thrilled that I was like able to get, because like I hadn't ordered it yet, and I was like kind of like dragging my feet, and I was like, yes.
It's actually really cool. You mentioned that like people buy them for their friends a lot, and I think that's really cool. Especially when I'm at conventions talking to people, and they're like, I think my friend would like this, and they'll get it. I'm like, man, your friends are awesome.
They're awesome. Well, and like, I never really understood this about D&D culture at all. This is something that's totally new to me, where like my buddy Ben, he like Severed Books has those giant like gelatinous cubes on Kickstarter right now, and he's like, I'm gonna order one of those for my DM as a thank you. And I was like, DMs get thank yous? That's awesome. Like, where else is this? Like, I need to actually like invest in this culture a little bit more, because none of my other hobbies I got gifts for just being me.
No. Yeah, like last time I played, it was me and I was the only one in the group other than the DM who'd played before, and people were bringing. It was like a potluck at the time, and I'm like, and he was like, "Wow, man, even none of my other groups even do this."
I mean, I think that that's an awesome, part of community gaming, and is something that we're all like missing horribly right now. I was literally just talking with a buddy of mine from high school that we just don't talk a whole lot anymore, and he had just started a campaign before coronavirus hit, and he is too technologically inept to use Roll20. And I was like, dude, seriously, just try it. It's very easy, and you will have your community back. Just do something, please.
I haven't had time, but I was wondering if Roll20 has really like blossomed. I mean, it was more so in terms of like, like Zoom has exploded. Has Roll20 really taken a big growth step during this?
I think they definitely have more people on it. We've had some issues with like camera, and like we can't tell if it's the platform or if it's like somebody's internet connection, because half of my family is still out in the sticks in Oregon, which means they get garbage internet. So it is probably that. But, like as a platform, like I didn't really expect D&D to be something that I would spend so much time thinking about as an adult, because like it didn't make any sense. As a kid, were you into video games and stuff like that? Yeah. Like, pen and paper didn't make any sense. Like where are the graphics, man?
And it is something I've always been like wanted to do, and but even, I mean, you can look at my board game collection, and it's I pretty much have only co-op dungeon crawler type games, and it's not that I don't like the competition. It's just like I'd rather go on an adventure. And I know I'm like alienating everyone that plays 40K right this second, but
no, I mean, I think that that's totally valid, and and let's just be honest. Like, I know that this is not a surprise. Most people who play 40K don't fucking play 40K. They like think about lists. They work on a couple models, but like
Yeah.
out of all my friends, and I don't even like 40K anymore, and I play 40K more than all of them. So like it's just funny. I know so many people are into the hobby and into 40K and
Yeah.
into competitive gaming that don't do it at all, but they have opinions about everything. And which is, I mean, it's par for the course. It is what it is. I'm not going to blame them. I'm not
It's
going
part of
to
the
judge.
hobby at this point.
Right. Well, and that's why people like you exist, because this hobby is so much more than just the models. It's so much more than the competition. It's so much more than the tournament scene. If it was about a tournament scene, Games Workshop would have done it a million years ago, and they have like ignored that. The fact that they just brought Golden Demon back to the States is a really like telling thing of like I think we're kind of hands off the wheel of all that, and maybe they will get into that sort of future, but like the hobby is the game. Painting the minis, talking with your friends, dreaming up the worlds. That's the game.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that like if people would take just a second to realize that they spend way more time thinking about the game than they actually do playing it, I think they would have a lot more fun like doing the painting, thinking about the tools, the thinking about the ritual that goes around the hobby. And that's a sad thing. Like, I know a lot of friends that just like as Vince Venturella said, they hate paint. They just like they don't even like want to sit down and enjoy the process of it.
They get the
like,
3 colors and they're good.
right, yeah. And I'm like, nah, man, this is meditation. This is the time that we're all like chill. We listen to music. We talk. Sometimes we get food. It's good.
Yeah, and that's one thing I've seen a lot is people definitely use it as that sort of Zen time, and for me, part of the reason I was painting beyond games when I started was that it was just time for me to turn off the brain yeah, and not be on my phone, and not I love video games still, but it was a time to unattach from that and sort of connect. I do have a fine art degree, but I'm not great at drawing, but this is something that I can connect with a lot better. It's the picture's already there. I just need to color it, basically. It's like advanced coloring.
It is, and I've talked with artists about it. I'm a picture framer. That was how I reached out to you, and like when I tell them that I'm learning how to paint, I always leave out I'm learning how to paint models, because they always are instantly going to be like, like just like tune me out from there, because like the skill is the same. It doesn't matter the surface, but like to somebody with a master's in fine arts or studio sculpture or something like that, we are like, it's high stakes tracing at this point. Like to them, they're just like, come on, like where's the concept in this? And that's always been something that's bummed me out just a little bit. Like, one day we'll get the respect. It's gonna happen. So one Kickstarter is successful. You go back to the well again a year later, and you expand the bar, of which I think was a really good idea, and had an even bigger Kickstarter. And at that was the point when you decided to do Game Envy all the time. Like, this is now your job.
It was August. I'm trying to think when it might. I think it was a full. No, I can't remember. What was last year's 2000? It was December 2019 is when I launched so that was last December.
Okay.
So I think I had done it. I was for about a year before. Maybe it was a couple months. Yeah, 2018. I think I did it for a full year. I've lost track at this point.
No, dude, I'm there.
So it was running the store and being able to focus on creating new stuff, because the grip that clicks onto the bottom, that was sort of part of the first campaign in STL files that you received, but it wasn't developed to the point of clicking in and stuff like that. It's funny, same exact thing happened with that. I was like, I assume I think I'll at least make an everyone that at that point it was like, dude, shut up. Of course you will.
You'll be fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So me and my wife hadn't taken a vacation since, by ourselves since we had kids, and we went to Harry Potter World, and I launched it like right before we left the house to go to the airport, and when we landed it was funded. And so the entire time at Harry Potter World, my wife has pictures of me every day on my phone, like I'm like answering comments and stuff.
That's so cool though. That's so nice to know that like you can like let go of the wheel like that and be like, I'm gonna still be like in the loop, but like I'm not driving this now.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty nice. That says you've made it.
Yeah.
So the store has actually expanded quite a bit since then. Like, and that's something that I really liked as I was just kind of looking at everything. I saw that you've expanded into brushes, which is really exciting because it's always hard figuring out where to get brushes from, especially if you're like, like just buying from like Michael's and stuff. It doesn't ever seem to work unless if you figured it out like the way like Sam Lenz has done. and you have like invested in a really nice brush. Like how did that come about? Because I'm sure licensing someone to like make brushes for you, it's got to be like way like a little bit more complex than just like any other stuff, because brush makers are really protective about their process and everything.
Yeah. And so I sort of I did a lot of research into like how, like even where to get brushes, and I talked to a bunch of people, and I ended up using one from the company that makes them for me, and I really liked it. I wasn't sure if they'd be able to sort of produce them. They're in the UK, to the quantity. So before I reached out, I'd looked at some other places, and I was getting quotes like, well, you have to order 10,000 minimum, and
right,
they're $1 a piece, and I'm like, oh, and I want 5 brushes. Okay, this isn't gonna work.
Right. Yeah, that is quite an investment right there.
Yeah. So I ended up reaching out to this company, and they're like, yeah, we'd absolutely work with you on creating these brushes, and they have a lot of experience, and I think that's sort of one of the big key things that makes the brush a good brush is that they're still a smaller shop, but they've been making brushes for 70 years. And they started out making pinstriping brushes and things like that. Nice. So they've always sort of been creating sort of it looks like they have other sort of general paint products, but they've been making specialized brushes for a while. And there's just like the Winsor Newton ones. They're not made for us as miniature painters. There's tiny watercolor brushes. So being able to like tailor a brush that is more specific to our materials and stuff, it was definitely interesting. But also you have to test them out, and I was using my samples for like 8 months before I even decided to go through with it, just because I don't want a broken brush that I ended up getting, or they wear out over time.
Right.
And it's actually, I have the only Winsor Newton released a video, and I'm like, I wish I could share this video. Winsor Newton doesn't make my brushes, but it shows you their team making the brushes, and I think it would be awesome. Maybe I should talk to the company about this, is showing people why these brushes cost what they do, because I know there is some like that, even though our set is very reasonably priced compared to other ones.
Absolutely.
But just why they hold up and what goes into them, and this video that Winsor Newton did, they're talking to the brush makers and they're showing them make these brushes, and it's intense.
Is that the too expensive one where they were talking about like
it's like a $400 brush or something? They only make them when you order it. Yeah.
Yeah. That video, I have showed that video to so many of my friends, and I was like, you want to know why there's a $30 watercolor brush? I was like, this is why. And I was like, Mine is like probably an $11 one because I had been ordering from the UK for a while too because I was having troubles finding sables here in the States,
Mhm.
and the Monument Hobby stuff was like just sold out for a long
Yeah.
time, and so I was like, and so I found a place in the UK, and I bought like a bunch of them because I was just tired of like not being able to find them. And yeah, I was just like, this is like it's totally different when you invest into a brush. And
Mhm.
so I like that I have like local domestic places that I can actually order
Yeah.
these from now. Because we've had a couple, tragedies in shipping where they come and every single brush is broken in half. You're just like, oh,
uh,
it's so brutal.
and
So,
that's sorry. Go ahead.
continue.
Oh, I was just gonna
I
say,
speak.
talking to bringing up like Monument and these smaller companies making brushes now. Uh, that's sort of what is exciting. I just said this to someone the other day, is that for a long time, because it was GW running things pretty much, and they were and other companies doing it, but it was very much there was innovation in sculpture and in paint, but it was very stagnant in terms of tools that you can use to do this better. And where we get crazy headphones coming out every week and all this kind of stuff, but there was no innovation happening, and that's really what's cool now. And yeah, I know you said you're like, I don't want to throw the copying thing out there, but it's flattering, but
Sure, yeah.
but at the same time, it's like the fact that people are even thinking about it is awesome. Do I wish I had the only handle? Sure,
Right.
but the fact that people are even investing their own time and energy into making things now is awesome, because we're getting products that make it easier and more fun and more enjoyable, really.
Yeah, I agree. And I am a firm believer of like a little healthy competition never hurt anybody unless if you suck. If you suck, then yeah, it sucks. But like the rising tide does raise all ships.
Mhm.
Like we are all into this together, and like I know I have some strong opinions and have said some things that are definitely hyperbolic. I was literally kind of called out today on my attitude towards 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, and I could totally get it. Like sometimes I just say some things like this filter doesn't work as well as it used to, but like I support like ingenuity and entrepreneurship, especially when it comes to a hobby, because like I'm a musician, and all of the guitar companies started off doing stupid little things. They
Mm.
started off making slides. Vic Firth drumsticks.
Mhm.
They started off by making salt shakers and pepper mills. Like they were not a drum company. They just had a way to get wood. That these are the things that like you don't understand what doors open up when you do start
Mhm.
like actually thinking about the hobby, your industry holistically, and
Yeah.
the things that you guys have done and developed, I think are like totally practical, and like it just, you're like, when you see, you're like, oh yeah, like the GW paint wash system that you
Mhm.
guys sell, like it's just like of which the other day I was on Twitch and I took mine out because I was moving. Like I said, I moved my
Yeah.
studio. I forgot to put it back in, and I dumped an entire bottle of known oil on stream, and I just sat there and stared at it, and I was like, you guys all felt that, right? You felt my rage, right? And
It's
I was
like there's
like,
solutions now.
yeah, I was like, and I have it. I bought this. I have one for every single pot. Like, why wasn't it in there? And like everybody was just laughing at me in
Oh,
chat. I was like, oh man, that hurts. That
yeah.
hurts. That one hurt.
And just like that, they're seeing, and I think it's actually good that companies are making products, because like there were, when I very first made the Wash Wizard a couple of years ago now, there wasn't really anything like it. Now everyone's making the little wash pot holders, and then
And
GW
GW.
makes it. Yeah, now they make
finally
now,
did.
but it was, it was 2.5 years after people were making this solution that they were
Right.
like, maybe this is something that we should do. And I'm all for it because it's forcing the big dogs to innovate again.
Right.
And
Right.
and I think that's awesome. Maybe when my website doesn't bring in enough money to support my family, I won't feel that way. But but I'm always, I have half a dozen things in the works at all times, and it's just all about finding time. And it really, like the Desk Wizard, the R10. So like the Wash Wizard started, and then with the second Kickstarter I made, I was 3D printing the very first Wash Wizard, and then I was laser cutting the next one, and it was an MDF, and it was cheap, and it was a nice add-on for the campaign. Sure. And then I was like, well, acrylic's not that much harder for me to do, so I switched over to acrylic, and then I got too many people. It was not that many people, but it was more people than I wanted saying like, oh, this broke in shipping, or I used it and it broke. Right. And so then that's when I redesigned the 1, 3, and 5 that I've been selling on the site to be more robust. And it didn't add a whole lot of cost to the manufacturing, but it made a much better product. And now, I've gotten 1 or 2 emails saying, "Oh, you forgot to put this piece in." And no one said it's broken. Yeah.
So some of the early stuff that I got from you was the laser cut MDF. Mm-hmm. Surprisingly, I haven't broken it yet, and I hate MDF because I always find a way to break it. Like in picture framing, if you want to make a framer really pissed, you either bring him extruded polystyrene or MDF, because none of our tools like to work on it. We're like, it's wood or nothing else. Yeah. And so like I was like, when I saw the first one, I was like, well, it's fine. This will be fine. And I've taken it apart. It was nothing, and I still haven't broken it. And it has gone to conventions with me. Nice. It's gone to hobby hangouts. Like, I'm actually kind of surprised it's held up the way it has. And when I saw the Desk Wizard stuff, I was like, oh, this is great. I already have all this stuff. I don't really need it. When I saw that you launched the 10 and the 14 on Kickstarter, I was like, buying this right now. And then like I saw Lynn Stahl like showing it off on Twitch, and I was like, how did you get the new hotness? And then like Gamer Dad had it. It's like, how did you get the new hotness? like I want the new hotness, and sitting there like screaming like, I need this right now.
That's why you reached out. No.
No, I am happy to wait for mine in line with everybody else. Like there's no problem. But when I saw that, I was like, this is for streamers specifically, because as the cell phone holder, I do so much stuff with my cell phone sitting off outside a camera, and I'm like kind of looking at chat. I was just like, this solves so many problems for me right now. And like, so how did the expansion of that happen? And was it like late night watching YouTube or like Netflix, and you're like, I need a place to set my cell phone so I can like paint and like watch the newest season of The Witcher? Like, how did that one come? Because it's brilliant.
It actually, it's sort of a mix between TV and also pulling up reference images of things,
Oh, okay, sure.
Just being able to have those there, and turning off my go to sleep function though. But yes, and it's interesting. So I never delete any files. That's something from my designer days. I have like every version. I also don't throw away prototypes. So I have like every version of my stuff. And I look back and the original one has 15 holes, and they're in sort of a pyramid pattern, sort of like it's basically the same thing, but shaped a little bit differently. It made no sense. But, but then taking it and like looking at it and being like, okay, well and I think some of this goes back to my design, is that not only do I try to make a functional product, I try to make it perfect. Like I'm in there editing the curves on the back of the paintbrush holder and doing things like that. And so if I don't like how this looks, it's, turning it into a rectangle, trying that out. And then, okay, so there's a ended up being there was a gap in the back that I didn't want to fill with paint, and I wanted to be able to stand it up a little bit to get that extra angle. And when I put the stand up there, I wasn't necessarily planned. I was like, oh look, my phone will sit there. And I was like, okay, now I got to make this work, because it was like straight up and everything.
Sure.
It's surprising how often that happens. Like the cork hole in the hobby holder wasn't in the original version. It was the injection mold manufacturer was like, that's too much plastic. You have to have 3 millimeters or 5 millimeters is the thickest we'll go. So you need to core out the entire thing. So I go, what would be a good size for that core to be? The exact size of a
cork. Yeah.
And the hole, even the hole all the way through the middle was part of that whole thing.
I have my hobby holder here, and when you take off this wonderful little Duchess Mini, I have the top there, and I have a cork in there for when I'm doing like pin things. Just like it's just it's very handy.
It's there.
Yep. And I love stuff like that. Because I would have never thought of that. That would have never crossed my mind. I would have tried to do something with magnets or something stupid, and it's just like, oh, this is very practical. Everybody's got corks laying around, and half the time they just get thrown away. So it's kind of nice to and the caps are a cap. It's just like, oh, I'm actually using things that can't be recycled. They, recycling centers do not want them. It's nice having that stuff. And I really appreciate that sort of, foresight and, being what's that, when you're just actually taking in what the muse is giving you, that sort of innovation, because that you don't get it unless if you're doing it. It's pretty awesome.
Absolutely. And that sort of goes back to how my design process is, and looking at things that come out, after mine, or just variations of it, like the brush bastion, seeing other ones that have come out since then. It's all about sort of this style is sort of similar, but the functionality of it isn't the same, and how it folds down and things like that, and really taking in the time to understand why something does that, why it was designed to have the hook on it, and different versions now, it's designed because they make them so it has a hook, but it isn't necessarily designed purposefully and with the thought of, this is someone who paints every day, this is how you hold your finger. That's why it has that little dip or things like that.
Right. Well, and that I don't normally paint without the handle, but I was doing a bunch of flesh eater quartz, and they have weird spiky things all over them, and I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna do the hand holder things on the hobby holder. I was like, oh, that's way easier, and and I'm not getting injured while working on these things. So how did the desk end up doing in this Kickstarter? Because I backed it, and I wasn't, because I've backed your other stuff, I wasn't even concerned on, I normally like to watch how high they got. This one I was just like, oh, this is gonna happen. I'm gonna get a product within months. He never takes a long time, and that, which is really special to me, because I hate waiting for stuff on Kickstarter. It makes me so frustrated. Please be further along in your process, at least, or be 100% honest with yourself and double the time frame and stuff. You're going to get it in 2 months, and it's a year later.
Yeah. Adam Poots is great at that with Kingdom Death. He's like, you'll get it in 2024.
Yeah, right? I mean, and that's what, totally not to throw shade on him, because he kind of revolutionized this whole board game thing. We all have a lot to to say thanks for his efforts, and I wouldn't be doing this, you and I would not be talking if it wasn't for me seeing Gorm. It's that important to me, because that's what got me into the hobby. But when I see his thing, I have a guy that I paint commission for, and it's kind of my one client, and and he was like, I backed the gambler's chest. This is going to be so great. You're going to have so much fun painting this. And I was like, yeah, I thought about backing the gambler's chest when they opened up the Kickstarter again, but I was like, I'm not giving him $400 and waiting 2 years. Like, I'm just not. Like, I'll get it when it comes out, and I don't care if it costs me more money. Like, I can, do cool things like get a tattoo or something fun, like cool that you have that money. And the fact that like Kingdom Death fans, they don't care. That's something that they're just like, just wait, it's gonna be worth it. I'm like, yeah, okay, dudes. All right, guys. But hey, like I said, like whatever keeps people in the hobby. Who am I to really judge? Like I'm not gonna be that guy.
And I with my campaigns, I probably do overpromise, but I also deliver it. But I do that to keep me on schedule. I am not good at remembering and staying on schedule. So if I know that I have those people needing this, then I'm going to work as hard as I can to do that. But also going into it prepared and knowing what is going to happen, and that does get thrown off with stretch goals and things like that.
Sure.
Because I'm not cool mini or not, and I don't have every statue already planned, and I know I'm going to make 5 million, and you're all going to get it anyways.
Right. Well, and that's like such a weird thing with CMON. Like they basically use Kickstarter as just their pre-order machine, and I'm like, it's like you make newsletters. And you can email your people and save that money. Like I'm sure that they probably have given like probably close to $10 million in fees in the last couple of years.
Oh yeah, and I'm like 10% off the top of everything with credit card and everything.
Yeah, just right off the top, and then whatever, if there's any like other fees associated with it, like backer kits or anything like that, it's just like, what are you doing? Like, seriously, you could probably sell maybe like, 500 less a Kickstarter, because I still think people would back their stuff. They have a very loyal following, but they are giving away a lot of money at this point, where like Kickstarter is still built for people like you who are like, I need like capital so I can buy a palette of acrylic, because one sheet of acrylic may not be a whole lot. But when you're doing enough for like 1,000 people or more, like that starts to get really expensive. Like it makes sense to back someone like you on Kickstarter.
Yeah. And because I've been doing the production for the Desk Wizard in-house, so more of that sort of controlled by me in terms of the time. And I say me, my sister is also interning all summer, and so I love her, and I am so glad she's here because she is packing every order right now for the store.
Awesome.
And I'm just working on the Kickstarter, so that's really helpful.
So did you buy yourself a nice laser cutter to do it on your own, or are you like crowdsourcing that through like a co-op or something?
No, I have a laser cutter, and then I upgraded last year, and so I have 2 right now. Yeah.
Nice.
And I don't have like an Epilogue or a Trotec, so I can't afford that. But but being able to do it, having 2 at cheaper than the cost of one of those, I can still make it in time.
Yeah, sure. Well, and like I used to do synth DIY, and so I would like have a local co-op, like we would laser cut like on their stuff. They would help me like make face panels and things for like all my like prototype stuff.
Oh, cool.
And like I realized that like I don't have a need for this, and maybe someday in the frame shop it'll make sense to buy one, but like I'm so glad that people have this stuff for, people to develop prototypes and stuff, because I like seeing that stuff in action. I was just like, oh, I never understood like a consumer grade thing that can do like a final product like that. It's very nice to have.
Yeah. And that's, being able to do that kind of thing in-house is awesome. I mean, I'm in sort of not the middle of nowhere, but there's not a lot going on where I live, so I sort of have to do that. But
sure,
that's one of the not most, but like a good portion of the money that comes in from these Kickstarter campaigns goes to developing more products and making it easier for me to make new products and stuff like that. Like with the first campaign, I ended up getting my resin printer, and then for the second campaign, all the prototypes were then resin printed, so that people weren't as confused by the 3D print
the
things.
final print.
Yeah. So
that's a really smart idea.
Yeah. But yeah, so with the Desk Wizard campaign, it was a low goal. I had the laser cutter. There was, I needed to just be able to, because with something like acrylic, the more I buy, the more I'm going to save. So being able to hit that top bulk discount was important. So that's sort of where the goal came from, was being able to have the price low enough to be able to run the Kickstarter and get all of that in. The
backlog.
Yeah.
So like later on, you're like, this is all money. Sweet.
Yeah. Well, and what's crazy now is though, all the acrylic manufacturers are tapped out because
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like as a picture framer.
Yeah.
Like, I am waiting. I got really lucky and I got a 48 by 96 sheet, and the only reason is because it's UV filtering and they didn't need all the regular stuff was gone. I was like, UV filtering is actually what I want. Perfect. Like I was thrilled to be able to order.
Yeah, well, and I looking at my vendor, like I have two vendors I go between, and it was the 48 by 96. They seem to have a lot of, or they're not like, so they're like, no one wants these.
Well, I mean, like, and that's the weird thing is like those shops usually like they would use them for like signage, picture framers. They will like they'll cut them down to size for you, but like nobody was like. It wasn't long enough after the holidays for them to be like at full stock.
Mm-hmm.
So like all like the acrylic was already low stock, and then to just be like, oh, and now everybody has bought what's it's insane. Like, and this is all kind of like new economy stuff. Like these will be interesting things for you in the future to think about, and like the materials that are there, and maybe like it doesn't always have to be acrylic. Maybe like translucent polycarbonates or things like that you can pick up. There's all sorts of things. It may not look as nice for the long run, but you might be able to get like something to get you.
Or imagine
through.
A nice stained walnut Desk Wizard. I don't know.
Oh my God, dude, that would be really sick. Like that would be really cool. Something like I noticed on the website, and I totally forgot that you guys announced it. Like you're doing plinths. Is that something that you do in house, or do you have someone do that for you?
No, I do that too.
You do that too. Is that just like your like passion project or something? Like
kind of. So it was again. It was. There was no one doing it in a sort of commercial. I don't want to sound like I'm doing it to make money, but I mean it is my business. But there was no one making. Yeah, you can buy black resin acrylic, black resin plinths by the dozen, but you can't buy really nice, unique ones without scouring the internet. And it got sort of put on the back burner. I still do it, and I mainly do just commissions right now. But it was being able to make really unique things, and the sort of 5-year plan for it, hopefully less than that, is it sort of a drop. So every Tuesday I put up the last 10 things that I've made, and that's what's for sale for those 2 weeks, and they'll be up there, and if they sell, they sell. If they don't, they don't. And people either know exactly what they want for a piece, or they're just like, I will paint something and I need a box of plinths so that I have the perfect plinth for it.
Right. I think that's a really good idea, especially if it's already something that you're doing, if it's part of your process, and if you can make some money off of doing it. Like, I am a big proponent of small businesses actually making money. And the idea is like when you watch like Kickstarters, one of the things that has always made me really sad is like it costs us $1,000 to make the book. It costs us $1,000 to pay the artist for these 3 pictures, and we're using whatever. And then like by the time they're done, like, yeah, there might be some fudge room in there. I'm like, you're only asking your break even point. Like, what is the point of trying to do this? Because if you can't go back to reprint, you've released something into the wild that may be very cool, but you're just going to have to go back to the well and do it again. Like think about your overhead, think about the future, think about taking a paycheck. Like your
Yeah.
time is valuable, like your brains, your knowledge is valuable. And I've had so many friends that they're just like, how have you been self-employed for 10 years? And it's like, well, I've made sure that every time I did something, I made money off of it. Like that's really like the nitty gritty of it. And I was like, and I know like my altruistic utopian like society doesn't really mesh well with a capitalistic mind frame, but like if you don't do it, you lose it all. And like you've got a family, I've got a 115-year-old house and a diabetic cat, I need money. I need money.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because every week I have coffee with my dad, and
nice.
He's awesome. I grew up around businesses that he sort of brought back to life and helped. That's sort of what he does. And
nice.
So it's a business meeting and coffee and just having time. And then, getting my sister, who is just finished her freshman year in college, into this.
Nice.
But every time we talk about it, he said, he's like, have you factored in your time with that? And I'm like, well, I guess, but and in the long run, I just don't, I don't have a paycheck, but I know what I'm doing.
Right.
In terms, I know the money is there for it. But yeah, it's very much, you gotta be able to do it. And I, this last week I was like, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but the amount of money in my business account hasn't gone up this last year. It has stayed the same, but I have got a second laser cutter. I've upgraded my office. I've done all this. So it's more like that's how I've been doing it. He goes, that's good.
That's good. Yeah.
Not having to go in debt to grow your business.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if you did any of the PPP stuff or any of the SBA loans, the disaster loans. Like the disaster loan for my business, I think was a death sentence if we would have taken it. They wanted to give us it was way too much money. And they're like, how much do you want? And I was like, I don't know. How much can I get? I don't really know. Like literally we're 2 weeks into this. And, the money that they said that I could have, it was like $125,000, and wow. And that's a ton of money. And I was like, okay, that's cool, man. It would be so great if I was in like a capital gain, like a capital campaign where I'm like, okay, now let's invest in new tools. Let's do this. Like, let's add services. I was like, but we're just needing money to survive right now. We don't have any plans to actually use this money. And I realized like if I was having to rely on that money to survive, I probably should just shut my doors, because like the terms weren't fair enough for me to like feel comfortable like taking that much money from the government. Because it's like if something did happen, like they were totally within their right to come after my assets, like all that stuff is terrifying. And those are things that like I don't know many people who have to think about these things. Like that's a really weird place to be in as a small business owner. And especially, someone like you who relies very heavily on con seasons happening, and they aren't happening right now. And that's like my heart like breaks for you and for the other companies like you in the same zone, because like, I think that you're very smart doing a Kickstarter right now, like setting up for the future, because like another reason why I was like, I got to talk to this guy, because, like what do you see your future as being in the new economy?
So it's interesting you said about timing for the Kickstarter first, is because the only reason I was able to have time to do this, and it was because Adepticon didn't happen, and it was like, well, I need to fix this.
Right.
And then Nova, I got canceled, and I was pretty bummed about that. I see a lot of people every year, and it's the closest one to my house.
Right.
But yeah, I don't, PAX Unplugged would be the next convention. I assume they're going to cancel it. I don't.
I would
It's not
assume
that.
so as well.
So those are. Those are huge for me. I will say, I think that people are still needing the hobby a lot, because, and there was discussions about I don't want to get too heavy, but discussions about turning off streams for George Floyd.
Yeah.
And seeing the discussions were like, people rely on my stream right now to stay sane with all of the things that are happening, and
Sure.
And there were a lot of good points on it, but it's like it's a therapeutic thing for a lot of people, and I don't think it's gonna. I think it's. I don't see too much hurt in the industry, other than people aren't having as much money to spend on it, and it can be expensive. But that's why I try to make products that are multifunctional and reusable and stuff like that. You don't need to buy 10 down the road because your first 9 broke.
Right.
You can
right.
if you want to.
You can. Yeah. We got a baker's dozen deal. If you order 12, we'll give you a 13th one for free.
You can get 5 painting handles.
Right.
Sets now.
Well, so like the interesting thing that we saw back in like when the recession happened, and a lot of miniature painters have said this that I've talked to, is that they saw their business increase during that time. Even when people had less money, people needed something like the hobby, and right now I think the hobby is like we're in absolutely a gaming renaissance, and it isn't just Warhammer, it is D&D, it is all the CMON games, it is Kingdom Death, it is literally, if you it's the 3D printing like revolution that's happening. You're sitting at like this really beautiful like cusp of just like all these new players in the hobby, and it seems like you are like positioned to be able to like, I'm going to do this because like a small company can do that. You can be nimble, and I think that that's really exciting place to be. Totally terrifying, and like if you do have like stress or anxiety, like those are very valid, and like we can commiserate offline on this one, because like literally every day I'm doing the exact same thing, but like it's really interesting to see, like when I saw the Kickstarter, like I was just like this is a brilliant product. I know that I'm gonna have to do. I'm getting this anyway. Like it absolutely makes sense. But I thought that was really smart. Instead of just like the wait and see thing, you were very proactive with it, and I'm very excited to see some of the like new things that you come up with, because it just seems like you kind of understand what like a hobbyist and like a tinkerer needs. You're kind of dialed right into that.
Yeah, and it's, I think I can, ADD is some of that, just because my brain doesn't stop running around in circles.
Sure.
I when I rearranged the office before the Kickstarter, I cleaned up a shelf, and I have a shelf that has like just all these half-finished projects on it. I'm like, I'll get to those. But yeah, it's being able to transition and I forgot one of the reasons that I did go into the plinths and everything like that is that it's something that I can rely on that can't necessarily be directly copied, because it isn't. I would say it's an art,
Right?
And there'll always be people looking for that special piece, and so going into sort of different areas, having the hobby holder be my only product, I probably would still need my full-time job right now.
Right.
I say full-time job. I work more now than I did.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. But being able to have more and work with other companies also now is really helpful. And bringing in tools like the Rinsewell that I sell it's been around forever. And
it's a brilliant thing. I've never seen it.
Yeah, I called up the owner of Masterson. I like talked with her on the phone the first time I called the company, and she's like, yeah, face painters have been using this forever. And I was like, I do miniature painting. She's like, and so like we had this whole discussion about her, and we've gotten some of her stuff, and it's products that have been in the art industry for so long, and it's going back and forth. And my my aunt does doll houses, and so I got her a hobby holder, and she's like going into this craft and expanding more into craft and just hobby in general. I think is so when I these people stop wanting me, got these people over here, maybe, I don't know.
And like scale modelers, model houses, all that stuff is like they've been like using their old pill bottles and washers. Like if there's one thing that I would love to see is this having like a weight in the bottom to make it a little bit more like steady. So
if you take out those screws, you can weight the inside.
Really?
Yeah.
Why haven't I done that yet?
I don't know. Or I know some people that pour BBs right in that hole and then just tape it up.
Tape it up. That's a really good idea. I did I was thinking, I was like, if there's one thing that I could say, like, this is if it was just a little heavier, I think I would be much happier with it. That's good to know.
Yeah. And that's what, like, again, goes back to the versatility thing, is that you can never design something that was going to work for everyone. So making future proofing it and making sure it can adapt to everyone's needs is what I try to do.
It's really smart. I mean, because like I've used this as like I've painted jewelry for clients who like, I have this weird like pewter thing, like what do I do with it? And I was like, I don't know, like you could paint it if you, and it's like, I don't really want to paint it. And I was like, well, you've bought me lunch for like the last like you bought me lunch for like every single month for last year, like just let me do it for you. And like I've done like weird things like that, and like being able to just like hold it, set it on a piece of blue tack, like it's just really useful and very easy and very steady. And I've used my Game MB stuff way more than I thought I would. Sometimes you buy stuff and you're like, oh, this is cool, and then you never touch it again. Like, oh, I've used it quite a bit.
It's funny that so many people that I've talked to, they're like, even with the Desk Wizard, Ben at Watch a Painting, he's like, I might use this. I mean, I love all your stuff, Kit, but and then he's like, I take this everywhere I go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like here, I've got my screen is blurred. Let me see if I can make it not blurred. Unblur my background. Okay. So like, this is my problem right here. Like, I don't know if you see like all my paints just sitting there.
Yeah.
I knock them over all the time, and it just drives me absolutely crazy. And I'm like, this is so frustrating.
And see, that's where it came from. It came from the exact same thing. I would paint something and then I have crap everywhere.
Yeah. And ADD people, like this is it's weird because the hobby is full of creatives, but like, left brain people who need things like all organized and together, like they don't make the same messes that right brainers do. And like I will leave like shit everywhere. I in my intro video to my channel, I said I hobby like an artist, because I do. Like I just make a mess and I don't really care. And like it sucks now that I'm up in my recording studio doing this, because I have to be a little bit more organized. And that's when I saw the Desk Wizard. I'm like, this is brilliant. Like, Kit strikes again. This is great. Well, we're gone a little bit over our time, but is there anything that you want to like promote? Anything that you want to say? Is there like cool stuff on the horizon besides this like oiled walnut Desk Wizard, which sounds awesome? Is there anything else that you want to like kind of like give us a glimpse in the future on?
I can't think. I mean, I have so much stuff that's like halfway there. I do want to focus on making some products I currently have in finer materials. I think that'd be really cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I did MDF, but doing, I did a brush beam the other day out of oak, and then I stain it with blue spirit stain. So I had this blue oak brush beam,
Yeah.
stuff like that. I think
Yeah.
would be cool. Just another twist on it while I work on other things. Right now, I do have another Kickstarter in my brain. Probably, I have another project I'm working on in between these two. Another whole nother thing.
Nice.
It's very, very early in stages right now, but I'm excited about it. I'm actually trying to get my wife to help me run it. We'll see, because she's a lawyer, and it would take a lot for her to
Right.
do that. But yeah, going into more gaming accessories too. I know that there's a lot of cool things happening there. But again, I'm always thinking of new ways to do things and portability. And although portability isn't a huge deal right this second with people staying at home, but
Yeah.
but
That's an unfortunate thing right now. Is like I've got all these like cool bags to like tote all my models around, and like they're all my models are just sitting in like plastic totes. I'm like, this sucks.
yeah. But and actually going back to sort of the thing about GM gifts and Dungeon Master gifts is I have some cool things for the Dungeons and Dragons crowd that I have on my plate. Probably going to be my next Kickstarter. A little bit bigger in terms of molds and stuff like that. But yeah, it's hard to plan what's next when I don't know what's next. It's whatever gets to the point where it's done. Like the Desk Wizard was done it was actually the Wash Wizard, the very first one I had done, and it had been made for maybe 3 months. And Super Sarah, so she
Super
was
Sarah's great. Like I need to reach out to her and talk to her, because I think she was the first person that I saw using the hobby holder. I was like, what is that? And like, where do I get that? That's pretty good.
Yeah. I reached out to her because I saw she had a 3D printed one. And I was like, do you want to try the real one? She's like, oh, you're going to send it to me? Okay, yeah. I was like, all right. But she knew I had made the Wash Wizard, and it had been like 3 months, and it just sitting around. I hadn't added to the shop because I didn't have time. And like every week she'd send me a picture on Instagram of someone with spilled stuff. So one Friday I was like, it's launched. So that's sort of how things go. I finished something. The Desk Wizard honestly has been finished, the main design for like 3 months now.
Sure.
And that hopefully makes you feel a little bit better, is that all of the prototypes I sent out aren't the final version. So
you burn.
they're really close, but I made tweaks today before I started cranking stuff off on the laser cutter. So wow. I'm still like, yeah. But yeah, it's really, it's whatever I have to a point, because I'll tweak something to death.
Sure.
Like Patrick Rothfuss and Name of the Wind. I don't know if you know that book series, but he's been working on book 3 for like 8 years now.
Right.
But so as soon as something gets to a point where I'm ready for it, then that's when it moves forward.
Yeah. I will do the exact same thing. My new stuff for like when I'm doing music and things now is like, because I get so in the weeds, I go first idea, best idea, and I don't ever go back. I don't look again, and then I move in a straight line, because if I sit and like I got a modular synth here, I just twist knobs for hours, and it's garbage. It's absolute garbage, and I like wasted an entire day. If like us creatives, if we don't focus, like if we don't have that thing that gets us there, you will keep on like it'll be this, that, in the kitchen sink, and you'll have everything on top of it because you figured it out, but like it took you 10 years to get there, you know?
And there are those moments though where you're like, all right, that was it. And
right.
I still have the video, and I remember when it happened, the hobby holder used to screw together. At the very, very prototypes, you'd screw it together instead of clicking it together. You can't injection mold that. I learned. So I was talking to my coworker, and we were talking about, I was like, well, what if it clicked together? And I have a a video on my phone it's a boomerang, and it's just me clicking it, and you can hear the click, that was like the best moment of like, holy shit, we did it. All right.
We did it. Ladies and gentlemen, we've made it.
We made it. You couldn't get it off because it didn't have the little like thumb loops left, but the click was perfect. Yeah.
Oh geez, that's awesome. I love hearing the stories of prototypes and stuff, because you're just like, okay, well now we have another problem. We fixed the problem, we made a problem. Kit, this has been so much fun talking. I really appreciate your attention to detail and everything that you're doing for the hobby. I hope the conventions start opening up soon, and I hope that you get a lot of add-ons during the production of the Death Wizard, because I love your stuff and I want to keep you around. This is really, it's great having you in the hobby, and it's a better place because of you.
Thank you, man, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely, man. Have a nice rest of your evening, and I will catch up with you sometime soon.
All right, bye.
All right. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Hobby Time in the Murder Basement. I so appreciate your support. If you want to see more hobby content, hop on over to twitch.tv/Heath Aldrich to see all of your fun hobby content streaming whenever I get a free chance. If you like listening to these episodes in more of a podcast form, I should be on all of your favorite podcasting apps. Make sure that you like and subscribe to me there. If you can, leave me a 5-star review. I'd really appreciate it. Have a nice rest of your day, and we'll be talking to you soon.